Okay, so we're going to continue from where we left off for our extended break. Baruch Hashem, I went to Israel for a good reason. My son became engaged. So I rushed to see if I agree with his choice.
That's very
Anyway, Baruch Hashem.
You get a vote on this?
And now I have to go back to the wedding. We should only travel for smachot. Yeah. No, the older one. Yeah. So we're holding towards actually the end of Halacha Taaruvot. We're almost done. Kuf Tet, Kuf Yud, and then Kuf Yud Aleph. Kuf Yud, of course, is the famous one with all the halachot of Svekot, which will require some time. And Kuf Tet is a quite small Siman, nevertheless a very important one. Some of the concepts in Kuf Tet were discussed in the very beginning of Halacha Taaruvot in Tzadik Chet. So perhaps just review them, because they form the foundation of the whole idea of bitul. Taaruvos, mixtures, is what this is all about. But there's different kinds of mixtures. There's a mixture of min beminoi, I think somewhat familiar, two of the same kind, two hot dogs, one kosher, one non-kosher, is an example of min beminoi. And then you have min b'she'eno mino. You have onions, potatoes. They're separate minim. Even though onions and potatoes are kosher, right? They can have blias. They can have, of course, have absorbed the isser of sorts. And the isser would pose here a problem because of the famous concept of tam ki'ikar. When things are being cooked, they emit the flavor. So it may not be the isser in itself that is an isser nikar or not nikar. We're dealing with a whole different idea when it comes to flavors. Flavors being emitted from the isser itself or from the blias in a particular food item. Like blias of meat in an onion, even in a kosher onion, even in kosher meat, but it's a basar b'chalav problem. So whether it's nevelas and treifas, whether it's non-kosher food or whether it's basar b'chalav, you do have the problem when dealing with tam. Tam ki'ikar, as we said, tam does represent the problem, as though it would be the ikar ha'isur. And one way of dealing with tam is to dilute it, not intentionally, but if you do have the situation where tam poses a problem and you do have 60 or more to cancel out, to dilute the tam, then it's no longer usually a problem anymore. We say that it's so diluted, it's so dalil, that it's pretty much gone, it doesn't have the problem. But there are times that we need more than 60. There are times that 60 or more is not enough. We've covered halachas of chaticha ruyo l'skabet, for example. We've talked even about something which is called davar sheish l'matirin. We've talked about birya, that these shi'urim, the shi'urim that the chachamim gave us, of course, it's not written in the Torah, the shi'urim that are necessary to mevatel something, as though it does not exist, does not help because of the chashivut, the importance of the particular isser. Typical isser that is basically almost not bottle is chometz on Pesach. Asur b'mashu. There are only a very few items that are asur b'mashu. Mashu means anything. It renders the whole thing asur. So we've discussed all along more the halachas of min b'she'eno miyoi, two different kinds of food items that are none of the same. And we've discussed, of course, the other differences, including yavesh b'yosh and lach b'lach, what the difference would be. Lach b'lach meaning liquids, and yavesh b'yosh meaning solids. There would be, of course, an obvious difference in the sense that if you don't have liquids, well, you don't have a problem of ta'am, of flavoring. But you do still have the potential for ta'am, if it's min b'she'eno mino, because you may eventually cook these two solids that are now solids, and eventually make cooked. So, even though you have a yovesh situation, which may have different halacha than melach, if it's min b'she'eno minoi, as I will explain, it could be a problem. It could be a potential problem. And there's a machlokes, or there's differences of opinions as to how we deal with them, with these situations midoraisa, according to the law, the din of the Torah, and how it ultimately is sorted out midrabanan, by rabbinic decree. The rabbis many times, in pursuing their famous dictum, I think that would be the English word of asus susyag la Torah, right? Right? Make a fence around the Torah. You know, it's important to preserve the Torah. You don't want to make mistakes. There are certain areas that one can easily come to make a mistake. So they, in their power, they had the authority given by the Torah to not create new laws. You cannot add to the Torah, but to protect the Torah. The many halachot of Niddah are siagim. Stay away. Stay away, so, you know, keep a distance so you don't make the mistake of falling in a very, very serious issue in the Torah that can involve karet, or can involve misa b'dei shamayim. So that's the importance of the gzerot, takanot, decrees, and laws that were enacted over the years, over the generations by the Chachamim in every generation that they saw fit. You know, when you learn Pirkei Avos, you say you learn that Yossi ben Yoezer said, you know, why didn't the other rabbi say what he said? He thought of it. Why? It's not that he thought of it and the other one didn't think. It's that he was living in a time that what he said was important to be told. Obviously, something triggered that it had to be said. And the same is with certain halachot and minhagim. We have the Rabbana, we have the Raisa for a reason. Because certain things evolve, certain situations, circumstances arise, and needed to be dealt with. Today, because of modern technology, we also have many questions as to how to deal with all kinds of problems. So we have to go back to the sugya, the Gemara, and the Meforshim, the Poskim, and see how to resolve the various situations that arise. So before we learn inside this, the Siman, maybe just go over a little bit the differences between the minim, in other words, min b'mino, min b'sheino mino, yovesh b'yovesh, and lach v'lach. As it has been explained, when it comes to the din of bitul, which is of course what we are interested, we have a problem here. We have a mixture, a taaruvot of Isser and Heter. And now what do? Yeah, throw it away in the garbage. And wait, it could be a tremendous amount of hefsid, of loss. Some people want to be a zealot, it's like like we spoke about, a fly falling into a soup. Oh, just throw away the soup. You don't need to do that. I mean, some people are sensitive, and of course, they may end up doing anyway, even if you tell them it's 100%. We need to know the halacha. So we're not going to relate now to sensitivities. The halacha, black and white, what is the halacha? And there are all kinds of halachas in situations of hefsed ruba, tremendous loss, and there are halacha when there is no hefsed ruba too. We somewhat discussed the various parameters of that in various situations. But midin Torah, according to the din of the Torah, when you do have a situation of a mixture of Isser and Heter, of min b'minoi, of yovesh b'yovesh, of solids, it's batel b'roiv. Okay? In other words, the bitul occurs when you have a majority. What's a majority? Even though you will come across the words chad betrei, 1 and 2, it does not necessarily mean that you always have to have twice as much of the heter keneged the Isser. Even though there are poskim that say, yes, you do have to have that kind of an amount, a considerable amount, we hold, like the poskim, shonim, that say, all it means is a little bit more. So as long as you have a little bit more, you could look at the Sanhedrin too, right? All you needed was 1 more. Unless it was for the death penalty, all you needed was 2 more. That's all. And, of course, the verdict was based on that. So if the heter is greater than the Isser by just a little bit more, it's fine. So that's yovesh b'yovesh, and that's min b'minoi. Now, what about min b'she'eino minoi? So you find in the Torah, if you learn the Torah, and those that go along with the Torah, that the Torah doesn't really distinguish between min b'minoi and min b'she'eino minoi. And that is how we hold. That the shita that basically does not distinguish between min b'minoi and min b'she'eino minoi says that what we aser today in min b'she'eino minoi, that it requires shishim and not roiv, it's entirely midirabanan. Today, what we have, what our custom, the halacha, that min b'she'eino minoi yovesh b'yovesh, of course, we're talking about solids right now, that Bitul B'Roiv would not be sufficient, need Shishim, that's purely Midrabanan. So that's the sheet of the Tur, that in Yavish B'Yavish, Min B'Minoi, Min B'Sheina, is pretty much the same Midin HaTorah. All you need is Roiv. Midrabanan, Min B'Sheina Minoi, would require Shishim. And what's the reason? So if you learn the Taz, if you remember from before, the reason is very simple, is it's a Gzera, Shemo Yavo Levashlam. You may come to cook them together, and since it's two different kinds, there will be tam, detectable. When it's the same, min, bemin, you couldn't tell the difference, even though I've been told that those who have eaten non-kosher hot dogs, goyim, can't tell the difference between a kosher and a non-kosher hot dog. Because the non-kosher hot dog still has the blood. They don't do Melicha.
Non-kosher.
Non-kosher, yeah. They don't do Melicha. And apparently, well, if you don't do Melicha, it's full of blood. If it's full of blood, it has a different flavor. And it's cheaper too, when you buy them. But we're not dealing with the price, and we're talking about tam. The tam apparently is different. So, we've spoken a little bit about tasting. That's the area of kafela. Whether we use or do not use kafela, that can come in handy in certain situations. We call in the chef, call in the expert, call in someone to see if it. But for the most part, min b'mina would not be a problem because there's no real discernible difference in this. And because of that, we don't have a problem with the tam ke'ika. So we bottle the roy. But min b'she'eno mino, it's cooked. It's a problem. There's tam coming out. So if it's a yavish, if it's solid, as we say, it's also midrabanan at the very least. Why? Because of Xera, you may end up cooking it. According to Tosfos, by the way, that was the Tur. According to Tosfos, min b'shein min would be also min Torah, even by yavish b'yavish. According to Tosfos, I think that's one sheet that brought down there. In Tosfos, that even in yavish b'yavish, it would be also min Torah. What about lach b'lach, the liquids? Lach b'lach involves some sort of tam too. But if it's min b'minoi, it's also min Torah's bottle b'roiv. Why? Because it's the same one, it's the same kind. Even though they're giving off the flavor, it's in lach. Nonetheless, they're the same. If it's min b'minoi, there's no real tam. And since there's no real tam, it's bottle midin haTorah. But min rabbanon, of course, it is different. We say that even though it's min b'minoi, it's otu min b'she'eno min. We're going to say that in case you may cook two different kinds. Now, what about the din of bittul itself? Even though the Gemara goes through the sugya there about dover royalist kabed and birya and all these things present a problem. Something is not a chaticha royalist kabed, or if it's not a birya, it can become bottle. In other words, the din of bittul obviously is recognized in the Gemara as something that is effective in eliminating the issue, but the question is, where do we learn it from? So, the sugya that we briefly covered, even though we didn't do it inside, that comes close, somewhat teaching us how this bittul works, is dam hapor and dam haseir. The case of the two bloods mixing together. The machlokes, the Rabbi and the chachamim, if it's bottle, not bottle, min b'minoi, and so forth. So that is definitely one sugya, or one source, I should say, that points to the concept of bittul. But what's interesting is that the vast majority of the Rishonim don't use that as the source, even though they somewhat relate to it and use it as well. But the main source for explaining bittul is the pasuk Achri Rabim Lehatos. What the Torah uses to describe what do you do in a situation where several rabbis hold of that this is tomeh, and others say it is tahar. You go by the majority. So in the case of doubt in halacha, you go by the majority, or any kinds of doubts. As long as someone does not contradict by what he's saying an established tenet already in the Torah, shivim ponim laTorah, you can give opinions right and left. Do you know how many books there are on pirushim in the Torah? Whether they're right or wrong, it doesn't matter. They're good. They may be acceptable, they may be interesting, as long as what the author writes does not contradict something that we know for a fact is an established tenet. So, a Rav, a Dayan, formulating an opinion, of course, whether it's a about the kashrus of something, or the verdict of an individual, or based on what he did. He can say whatever he understands to be the truth, based on his experience, based on the testimony that he hears, information that is before him, and it's acceptable.
It's a very important principle. Very important principle. Most understand.
Not everybody understands this idea. And this, I can even go more into this, but it's a whole different topic. And how is it possible that there should be machlokes, arguments between Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai? I mean, don't they know the truth? What are they arguing about? Moshe Kibbutz Torah Messina, and what happened all of a sudden? There's no chain of transmission, it's been severed, that they have to figure out what the halacha is. Well, that's an interesting area of what? No, obviously, but it's an interesting area in understanding that not only the transmission of the Torah, but also the difference between the Torah Shebechsav and the Torah Shebal Peh, the oral tradition, which is really the details of everything that is written in the Torah Shebechsav. It's not something new; it's something that was handed down at the same time. But what was not necessarily handed down with great clarity are all the rules and of all circumstances and situations that may arise. So what was handed down were laws on how to resolve such situations, if they ever arise. The midas shator nidreshes bohem are some of the ways we approach problems, or at least the Chachamim back then, in establishing certain halachas, needed to base their halacha on certain rules. And if they abided by those rules, of course, they would be able to come up with the halacha. Nonetheless, there were still differences of opinion, different schools of thoughts, and they were all acceptable. Elu ve'elu divrei Elokim Chaim, the rabbis tell us they're both acceptable, they can both be the truth. How can they both be the truth? They're not both implemented. That you can't have. You can only implement one Shulchan Aruch, unless you have minhagim, things like that. One halacha, okay? But you can have different opinions that are both acceptable to Hashem, because they're both going with the truth. They're both able to support their position on something that is already established in the Torah.
And as an example, you have Ashkenazim versus...
Yeah, but that's already, today, that's already the Gullus, the diaspora that has led
but for, an
for some divergence. But the divergence is very small. Some people would like to think that there's such great differences between Sephardim and Ashkenazim. There are not that many. There are quite a few. They're just few. Okay, I'm not talking about right now prayer. I'm talking about actual halacha in Shechita, a little bit in Hilchas Shabbos, a little bit in Hilchas Niddah, in Bishul Akum, maybe in Yain Nesech too, if you really want to get down. There's differences between Yosef, the Mechaber, the Ramah, but they're not that.
Really big one, not the cream cheese.
Yeah, which is not the end of the world either. Yeah. So anyway, we do have, of course, differences of opinion here. Sometimes between the Shach and the Taz, Kibbutz Eger, Pri Megadim, the Gra, and it pertains to an older argument, perhaps, that is between Rashi and Tosot, or in the Gemara, which was never really completely resolved. We don't have a psak in the Gemara. Sometimes it happens. There's no real psak conclusion in the Gemara as to what the halacha, how the halacha is rendered. So which opinion do we use? So that's why you have here various opinions concerning how bittul works. One says Achar Rabbim Lehatos, getting back to what we were saying before. The concept of Achar Rabbim Lehatos means you go by the majority. And that's ultimately a very important idea because the majority rules. I don't know if I told you, but it pays to bring it up again. Rabbi Yonasan Eibshit was known to be a very, very smart young child, as a child even. So he was once called by the king, you're a smart Jew. Tell me, your own Torah says Achari Rabbim Lehatos. You go by the majority. We, the Christians, he says, are the majority of the world. And why don't you go after us? Why don't you join us and embrace our faith? What did this young Jew answer? He says, Your Honor, the din of Achar Rabbim Lehatos is only when you have a doubt. We have no doubt about the truth. When there is a doubt about a certain halach, and you call in the rabbis and you go by the majority. The din of bittul, even though we're talking about food items canceled out or eliminated, is therefore, according to these Rishonim and Poskim, based on or borrowed from the same concept of Achar Rabban Hatas in Judges. In the same way that one opinion is cancelled out by the majority opinion, the food is cancelled out by the majority of the food. Now that's very interesting. What does cancelling out really mean? Does it really mean that it's gone? Well, it depends how you hold. If you hold like the rush, that Isser that was there before has been transformed to a new. It is now called Heter, just like the rest of them. But there are some that say no. The concept of Bitul is not a transformation in the Isser to a Heter, but it is a form of called the Porish Biruba Porish, which we'll learn about. I'm making the assumption that when I grab one of the three, I'm grabbing that which is the majority. The majority is Heter, so I'm grabbing a Heter. Which means what? I cannot eat them all at the same time. Cooking them at the same time. And perhaps, according to some opinions, not even one individual should have them all at the same time. Or different times. Or exactly, at different times, right? Not even one individual. So we will see that when we learn the halacha inside. So depending on how you hold bittul, even if you hold bittul is Achar Rabban Hatas, the Rosh is a big chiddush here. Not everybody says what the Rosh says. The Rosh says it's not only Achar Rabban Hatas, but the majority. I mean, we have to make a decision here. We're not going to throw away the whole thing. Just because one got mixed in, I'm going to throw away 100 pieces. I'm not assuming that you have 100, which is more than wrong. Why? The Torah gives us this heter. You can eat the whole thing. How? We're going to see. But why? The Rosh says it's transformed to a heter. The others say that it's not a transformation, but it's an assumption that I make that every time I eat one, it's a form of called the Polish Miluvo. Yeah.
What I'm entitled to make, the halacha gives me the right to make assumption.
Right. So this opinion of... No, well... Yeah, I want to resolve this problem that I have,
He said that if you say that presumption, Rosh seems to imply that it's no longer a matter of transformed.
It's transformed, right.
Can't say it.
That's correct. You can't what?
You can't. I'm not going to eat it, or it's been transformed.
Right.
It's not just it's a matter of law that.
Yeah, that is what has happened. But we're going to see something very interesting soon in the Taz.
Quick question.
Yes.
I don't know if he speaks. Does the Rosh, with respect to this particular, the halacha of it has been transformed, or
the status?
What is the state?
The status, the status of this food
So
item
it's the halacha
that I'm not able to identify, obviously.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's the halacha that applies to it, and nothing itself.
Right, not the thing itself. Yeah. So the other concept, or the other source for bittul from the Dama Por and Dama Ser is something that is more elaborated on, supported by, in other words, that is the source that Smag and the Rashba point out, that is what we learn from it. But Rashi, Tosfos, and Rosh, you see, they tend to point in the other direction, the direction of Achar Rabban Hatas. Okay, now that we understand what is the din min Torah and what is the din midrabanan, let's go one step further. The Gabed Gzera of min be'ino mino be'yovesh, that you may come to cook them, right? That was Gzera, according to those who hold that is Gzera d'Rabbanan. Interesting question that the Taz raises. You're going to cook them? Well, wait a minute. They have already become bottle. They have already become bottle before you ever end up cooking them. They got mixed as yovesh. Min b'sheinu mino, right? They got mixed as yovesh. Now what do we say now? You need 60. Why? Midrabanan? You may one of these days decide to cook the two together. You may want to make, beans and lentils. Persian food. I don't know. Min b'sheinu mino. But right now, the Taz says it's already bottle. In other words, the fact is, the Minatorah, it's bottle. The fact is, and what do we just say? Bottle means bottle. Whether it's Achar Rabban Hatas, whether you learn it from Damaser, Damapor, regardless, it has already been, and according to Rosh, it already has been transformed. It's a very good question. So what's the concern here? Once something is bottle, do you mean to say that it could be reawakened? That's the concept of choize veneer that is very much discussed in Hilchos Pesach by Chametz. There was chametz there before Pesach. It was bottled, but can it be reawakened? on Pesach itself. Differences between Sephardim and Ashkenazim on that too.
Can we learn something else?
You may have heard of it.
Mechalya l'shvach, I think right? You're the expert on Mechalya l'shvach, so if it comes from you, it's the Mechalya
Well, are you
l'shvach.
talking about something that becomes tasty again?
Yeah, it was already pagum.
Right.
But now you have a hot radish in there.
Right,
It's
right.
Mechalya l'shvach. Even though it's already in a binyom. Right.
Anyway, so the Taz, we're going to get to the Bach in a moment, which is also very interesting, but the Taz, I think, leaves it as the Tam is Nikar. In other words, the Isser is Nikar. In other words, because even though you're right, it should be bottle, but because the Tam is going to be a problem here, we consider this as though the Isser is Nikar, always Nikar. And you know, when the Isser is Nikar, you don't have Bittul. If you can see it and identify it, not even if you have 10,000 pieces. Can you get rid of that bug? You see the bug, see whatever it is that is usher. You have to eliminate. I mean, regarding everything else in the pot, it may be bottle because there's so much against the tam that it's diluted its bottle. But the Isser itself is not bottled if you identify, if you can see it. So the Taz explains that even though, yes, in some ways it is bottled, but because the tam is still there, it is as though the Isser is nikar. That's the way the Taz explains it. However, the one that we really want to figure out is the Rosh, because the Rosh went as far as saying that the whole thing is transformed. And if the whole thing is transformed, it shouldn't be Choyzer Veneer. It shouldn't come back and reawaken itself as an Isser. Once it has become, if you say that it has changed in the status, it has become a heter, like the heter, then why should we be concerned? So therefore, there's an interesting machlokes, a very interesting machlokes in the poskim, whether the Rosh said what he said about Isur becoming heter only in min b'minoi, or even b'min b'shein. Interesting machlokes, because maybe he only said it by min b'minoi. 3 hot dogs, 1 is treif, 2 are kosher. So the treif is transformed to heter. The Bach says on this, he says it elsewhere, that the Rosh concept of Isur becoming heter is even by min b'sheinu minoi. Well, if that's the case, then our question is, we're back to square one. Then if it's even in min minoi, then why should there be a xera at all? So what's the answer? So I saw one explanation given that we're concerned, the xera was Shema Yevashel before he becomes aware of the Taaruvos. Remember Niddah, the concept of Niddah? Did you know or did you not know that it was mixed? It sometimes can make a difference. Niddah can sometimes make a difference. So if there is a possibility that something may get mixed before you know of the mixture, and then it gets cooked, so there was never a chance for it to become bottle. If Yavesh, in the Yavesh state, the min b'she'enu minu became mixed, Rosh says, okay, it's transformed. Now I don't care what happens there, it's gone. Right? But if there's a possibility that they can become mixed without me knowing it, and then they will be cooked, I'm in trouble because now it's an Isur min Torah. It's Tam. So that would be a possible explanation as to why we're still concerned nonetheless, even if we adopt the Rosh's explanation of an Isur becoming heter as a result of Bittul. If I can possibly not become aware of it until it's too late, it's already cooked, it's going to be a problem. Of course, I would become aware of it while there were solids, Yavesh, it would work. But because there's that possibility of that there would not be a Niddah, it would go straight from mixture into the pot on the fire, then I understand why there needs to be a Niddah for Xera.
Condition of the biddle taking effect while they're dry is that you're aware of it. If you are unaware that there was an Isser involved, and there was a majority in the state of Yavesh,
right,
and then they were cooked in a liquid, the fact that they were dry first was the majority doesn't help it because of the lack of awareness.
Lack of awareness,
so awareness is a condition for it becoming bottle.
Yeah. That is the way it is explained, and I think that's a very good explanation. It does somehow clarify this question. Wait a minute. It's gone. Why be worried about it? Well, I would be worried about it in case I did not know about the mixture to begin with and now being cooked. So Niddah sometimes makes a difference. We've seen Niddah. At times, Niddah or lo Niddah can make a difference. You saw in Basar B'cholov too. Remember about putting in the spoon twice? Yeah. But Truma, yeah. So Niddah or lo Niddah can make a difference. So perhaps this will be the reason why the Gzera is a real Gzera, even though it is batal when they get mixed. Min b'sheinu, especially according to the Rosh, it's transformed into heter. Okay, so why now? Why not worry about it? Why need shishim? Roiv is enough. Well, it may be that it may get mixed up one time without one being aware of it and go straight to the cooking pot, where you will have, of course, tam, which is an Isur Torah. So in order to avoid that Isur Torah, we make sure you have shish even when they're in the state of solids. Another interesting point that I saw is in the Shach. The Shach brings down that, let's say you have min b'she'eno minoi, right? Min b'she'eno minoi, we said that is there's a gzera, even though it's yavesh b'yavesh, that you need shishim. But he says that if it's in an isur derabanan, you follow me? In an isur derabanan, roiv would be enough. Why? He says, what's the whole gzera of min b'she'eno minoi? You may come to cook it, and then what? You would have an isur min Torah. Here you will never have an isur min Torah. You follow?
It's a fence around the fence.
Yeah. You would never have here ever an isur min Torah. It's an isur derabanan to begin with. But we will see when we read it inside the Halacha that the Ramah doesn't seem to make a distinction of the Rabbanan and the Oraisa. But the Shach says, even though I think elsewhere he says that one should be machmir. He says that elsewhere. But the point is a very good point, that perhaps in an Isur Rabbanan, this Gzera would not really apply. Another interesting point is brought down by the Pri Megadim, even though it relates to the Shach too. If you have a situation that the Isur is poigim the heter, it's mashma from the Shach, it's in Siman Kuf Beis, when we talk about Tam Gam, in a situation where the Isur is going to be poigim the heter, when it's cooked, batal b'roiv, it's min b'she'eno minoi. Why? Because when you cook it, it's going to be poigim. You're not going to have an Isur Torah here. Interesting, isn't it? So this would be another exception we can call perhaps, of even though it's min b'she'eno minoi, but the Isur over here, if you cook it, will be poigim, will make the taste foul, defective, whatever you want to call it, then you won't need shish. It will be sufficient. Why? Because it's never going to become an Isur Torah. Interesting point. Also, when you do have, the Shach brings this down, min b'minoi, that was cooked in roitev. So you have, in the roitev, you have 60 against the min b'minoi, the Isur. It's being cooked. You still need roiv in the min b'minoi. In other words, even though you have shishim in the roitev, in the sauce, to cancel out any flavors that are coming out that may pose a problem, right? In the solid foods that are there, being cooked, stirred up, you still need roiv amongst them. The shishim does not cancel out the solids. The shishim in the liquid is good enough for the liquid to be okay, but amongst the solid pieces, you need roiv. You still need the roiv to be mevatel each other.
I didn't understand the scenario. I have a pot with water.
Right.
There are pieces. One of them is
right.
So
let's say you have 3, 4, 5 pieces of meat. One of them is treif, and you have a lot of liquid. Okay, and it's all min b'min.
Because it's two different things that you're eating about. One time it's with the
exactly.
Liquid, another time it's the
exactly.
malashes.
So the Shach explains that even though you may have shishim in the roitev, in the sauce, and the liquid against the Isur, it doesn't mean that the Isur is gone. You still need amongst the solid pieces, roiv, the min b'minoi. Huh?
So that the question then is, why does he only include in to constitute, to accomplish the roif against the isser, why cannot the liquid also be? Oh, because you can't confuse.
Yeah.
You're never going to take from the liquid and say, maybe that's the piece of meat.
Right. Completely two separate things. Yeah.
So it would have to also be of the same type. If you have carrots and potatoes in there, you have to mitzaref them either.
Right. However, the real question is in a different area completely, and that is in the case of min b'she'eno minoi, that we were saying all along is that the rabbanon that you need shim, right? In that case, when you have a big pot in which you have min b'she'eno minoi, but you do not have shishim unless you have the roitev, amongst the pieces, min b'she'eno minoi, you do not have 60. You do have 60, however, when you include the roitev. Would that be sufficient to consider this as shim?
I would not.
Right, because of what we just said.
60 is the oraisa. Min b'she'eno minoi, 60 is the rabbanon.
No. But here we have, right, here, we have the shishim. We do have shishim. But the shishim is together with the roitev to cancel out the tam, which is the problem of min b'she'eno minoi. So we do have that. But do we say that that's enough? Or do we need shishim in the pieces too?
Or shishim in the pieces, not
or
just
the
the
pieces, not just not together with the roitev, because we wanted the pieces to be mutter too. And here you have shishim, but only with the water and the sauce, the roitev.
So you're talking about min b'she'eno.
But in the case of min b'she'eno.
So really,
right.
I can distinguish.
Can I say roiv would be enough, just like in the min b'mino? Because roiv really is enough midin Torah for the solid pieces. It's just that I have a gzera, and here it's not only a gzera, here it's a reality, it's being cooked, that I have to get rid of the tam. I'm able to get rid of the tam with the shishim, right? The question is, but what do I do about the solids? The solids, there's no 60 solids. Right? When I can't see anything, everything is mixed up together, it's a different story. It's shredded, right? But here it's not shredded. It's the pieces.
It's also min b'she'eno, which
and it's min b'she'eno mino.
Yeah, but it depends, right? If you say min taste is a matter of taste,
right?
Which we said that min b'she'eno mino is a matter of taste is taken care of. We don't have a special concern for min b'she'eno mino, right?
Right.
Some way one could argue it.
Yeah. So anyway, so there's a machlokes here. So Minchas Kohen says that the chatichas remain asur, and the Minchas Yaakov says that it's okay. Since I think the Minchas Yaakov. Since between everything there is 60, we say that it's okay. The chatichas is bottle, chad betray. In other words, because midin Torah, all you need is bitul beroiv. Elamai, you need 60 here. You do have the 60, but not amongst the pieces, only with the sauce and the water. So he I think various other poskim and Achronim say too that would be sufficient. Anyway, let's just read the first seif inside, and then we'll continue next week with the rest of the Siman. So din yovesh b'yovesh shenisar siman kuftes chaticha she'ena ruyu l'skabed. So it's interesting. This the way he begins. It's not a chaticha ruyu l'skabed, so it's not a very big important piece. Shenisar b'acher, so just a regular piece of meat or whatever that became mixed in others min b'mino yovesh b'yovesh, same mean and solid and dry. The haino, what does it mean? The hainu, the she'ein nivlal, it's not completely shredded and completely mixed. Va'isur oimed be'atzmo, you can see it there, you just don't know which one it is. Ela shenis'ar ve'enu makiroi, it's mixed like 3 hot dogs. Chad betray, 1 and 2, bottle. So we're talking about min b'mino, yovesh b'yovesh, you can't know the difference between them. They are bottle, or it is bottle. Umuter le'ochron odom echad, the Mechaber says 1 man, 1 individual can eat it. However, how could it eat it? Kol achas mifnei atzmo. Each one by itself. Aval lo yochal shloshtam yachad. He should not eat them all 3 together. There are some, of course, who forbid to eat them one after another if it's one individual.
So what do we do with this weight?
So the Ramah, let's see the Ramah. That is how one should conduct himself. Yesh machmir, and even more. There's another shita. Not only cannot one person have it, but some even throw out 1 piece. That's a chumrah. Only throw out a piece, to throw out a piece, or little oil to give it to a goy. It's all b'minoi. Ava shelo b'minoi. If it's not b'minoi, you don't recognize it. Afilu yovesh b'yovesh. We said before what? Sorry, shishim midrabanan. Now, towards the end, he says, "Ve'en chiluk b'chol zeh ben imaisu mirabbanim d'oraisa." As we said before, he quotes Yosef b'Shem HaPoskim that there's no real distinction between the issues d'rabbanim d'oraisa. The ayin lekamon simin kufchov beis in this abu kalim b'yachad, which we'll talk about too, sometime later. What happens if kalim got mixed together? Treif kalim and kosher kalim. Some of them need hagala. You don't remember which one it is. We discussed it briefly in the past. What will be the din over there? Because in some ways they resemble the min b'min or yavesh b'yavesh. Kalim are kalim. What is the din? You remember a little bit what we said? If they're very, very few, it's a sort of davar sheyesh material. You can easily fix the situation by just putting into hot water.
No, but that's only if you have many.
The question is, what happens if you have...
Yeah,
so the question is, what happens if you have many? Then it becomes a caterer that has many caterers. Oh no. What do you do with that pot or spoon that became treif? It's all mixed. Go find it. Now what? Okay, so that will be the question that we'll discuss next week.